Okay, quick recording here on some of these delta math problems involving simple harmonic motion. Here's the first one here, and it's kind of a guided practice where you have to have a few fill-ins that lead you to the answer. First of all, the amplitude is kind of given. The amplitude of the sound is, the sound wave produced is 1.5. They gave you that. So for amplitude, you could really just put 1.5 right in there. Obviously, you'll be typing it in. I'm going to write it here on my iPad. They gave you the frequency is 264. I'm going to write that here. Of course, the unit is cycles per second, or what they call hertz. Now, the period is just the reciprocal. So guess what? It's just the reciprocal. It'd be 1 over 264. You can see we said enter that as a fraction. And then to get the equation, the key here is we have to find that constant b. So the period we know is 2 pi over b. So for period, I have 1 over 264. That equals 2 pi over b. And when you cross multiply, b here is 528 pi. Okay. This b is in all these word problems, this is going to be the hardest thing to find. And as you can see, it's not that difficult. So here's my function, f of t equals, the amplitude is 1.5, right? They didn't specify sine or cosine here, like how the graph starts. I'm going to default to a sine. We go with our b, 528 pi, and you need the variable t. And of course, this here is really what would, this is what would go in this box. Obviously, I can't fit it, but we would type that into that little text box right there. Let's look at one more of these. Obviously, this goes without saying. If I'm going too fast, slow the video down a little bit. All right, this was about sound waves, but really, you didn't even need to read the equation or read the setup of the problem. The real problem here is the graph, okay? The graph is just very small, and you could see we said the x-axis, each mark or each little tick mark represents pi over 6. So the hardest part here is getting a cycle, right? Clearly we see the amplitude is 2.5. We have to trace out a complete cycle, which would be this part of the graph here. And if you count those tick marks, there are actually 8 of them, right? Or you could just say, hey, here's pi, and this is, 1, 2. This is 2/6 of pi, or negative pi over 3 right here. Very hard to see. Obviously, I'm zooming in. So the period is going to be pi plus a third. It's going to be 4 pi over 3. Again, very difficult to see that, but probably we should have blown that up just a little bit. All right, so now I want an equation. It hits at a high point on the y-axis, so that'll be a cosine. The amplitude is 2.5 cosine. And then we got to do that little calculation, right? 4 pi over 3 equals 2 pi over b. We cross multiply and get 6 pi over 4 pi, which reduces to 3 halves. Notice the pi's, if the period has pi in it, b will not. So this becomes 3 halves t. And of course, f of t is already given by delta math, so don't rewrite that because these get graded by a computer. That would go right there in that box.